Mario Kart Wii has amazing shortcuts. In fact, many would say that they are the best in the Mario Kart series. Cutting off giant corners of the track and passing your opponents is a great feeling, but this game's almost 16 years old. All the massive shortcuts have been found and perfected at this point, so people started looking in a new direction to break the game. In fact, it was the complete opposite direction. This is the story of how 4 tracks were exploited and totally broken more than a decade after the game's release. This is Mario Kart Wii's backwards shortcut revolution. Now I want you to think back to when you were a kid and got your first Mario Kart game. Whether it be 64, Double Dash, DS, Wii, it doesn't matter. You probably messed around in time trials or played with your friends to explore the tracks, looking for shortcuts, glitches, whatever. I know that I did this with every entry that I played, and in that process I would try to drive a full lap of every track backwards, just for fun, just to see if it was possible. I'm sure many of you did the same thing, but there's no real point. You can't accurately track your reverse lap times like you can in a normal time trial. If the game had that kind of option, I'm certain that speedrun categories would exist for backwards time trials, and they would be just as popular as the normal ones. But with no actual game mode like that, like I said, there's no point to driving backwards in Mario Kart. Except for in Mario Kart Wii, because the entirety of Mario Kart Wii's competitive landscape revolves around people driving backwards as fast as they possibly can. Welcome to the world of Mario Kart Wii Clan Wars.
I have a truck. I have a truck. I have a truck. I have a truck.
I have a truck.
I have a truck.
A clan war is a 5 versus 5 team match. You play 12 races and whatever team has the most combined points at the end wins. Now in these wars, not every player drives forwards in races like normal. One player from each team, called the bagger, drives backwards at the start of the race. The goal of the bagger is to get into 10th place and ultimately pull the shock, because the shock is super busted and overpowered. When used in coordination with your team, you can dodge the shock while hitting your opponents and they get zapped. This strategy is extremely influential on who wins the races. Now, I don't want to spend all day talking about bagging. I actually have an older video where I kind of go into that, but the most important details is that being in 10th is good because you have a higher percentage chance of getting the shock with each individual item box you touch. And there is a 30-second rule, where the shock isn't actually available to pull until after 30 seconds has passed in the race. So, a good bagger is going to be fast at driving backwards. There are a bunch of different skips and shortcuts that were discovered early on when the bagging meta first started. Some of the most notable include this respawn on Bowser's Castle 64. You need to get enough distance to hit the respawn point that will place you at the bridge. Otherwise, you will respawn after the last ramp and your progress backwards will be halted. Then later on the track, in order to get up these stairs, you need to bonk off of this wall in a precise way that will give you a lot of air and send you at the correct angle. On Maple Treeway, you have to cut off this big U-turn, but when done incorrectly, you'll hit the sign and fall off, so you need to launch yourself at the correct angle to land on the track, which saves time. Then later, we have another tough wall bonk. On Grumble Volcano, you have to pull mushrooms in order to launch yourself far enough and respawn at the right spot. If you don't go far back enough, you will respawn in front of the platforms and be stuck. Almost all the bagging strategies in the game were like these corner cuts, wall bonks, and specific respawns. These cuts are necessary for any competent bagger to learn. But what about tracks where you can't drive fully backwards? Any track that has a giant wall or gap that prevents you from continuing back is called a sitting track. Sitting tracks are labeled as such because the baggers have to sit at the last possible item set and just kind of hang out and play mind games with each other. After the first few years of exploring the game, just 6 of the 32 tracks remained sitting tracks. Coconut Mall, Toad's Factory, and Koopa Cape all had impassable walls that were too high for any vehicle to climb. And Rainbow Road, Maple Treeway, and DK Mountain all had giant chasms that separated the track that you normally clear with a cannon. You might notice that 2 cannon tracks are missing from this bunch. DK Jungle Parkway has this river, and we unfortunately cannot float across, but if you simply jump far enough, you'll respawn behind the cannon. Similarly, DK Summit looks impossible, but if you trick at the right alignment, you will pass through the invisible wall and plummet down to the fall boundary. Then you respawn at the starting line. You would think in a game this janky, people would find methods to respawn behind the cannons on the other tracks. But after the initial explosion of discoveries, nothing was found for over a decade. These 6 sitting tracks remained unbreakable, and quite boring for all the baggers to play on. On the running side, discoveries were made every year. New strats to shave off milliseconds, huge track-breaking ultra shortcuts, but the bagging side remained mostly silent. Until 2020, the year where people had more than enough time on their hands. And what a better way to spend all that time than by looking at Mario Kart Wii's checkpoint maps, specifically the checkpoint map of Coconut Mall. You see, there actually was a way to drive Coconut Mall backwards, and we've known about it for years. This is the out of bounds glitch. If you fall from this railing at a certain point, you will clip out of bounds and be able to explore the track. The glitch is most notably used to perform Coconut Mall's ultra shortcut. But one other fun thing you can do is get up on this arch and launch yourself into the mall from the parking lot. So yes, you can actually drive Coconut Mall backwards while using the out of bounds glitch. So why didn't baggers use this in wars? Well, first of all, it was banned, and secondly, the method would simply not be worth it because of its difficulty. Let's go back to that checkpoint map. The way the ultra shortcut is performed is by going from checkpoint 0 directly into the last key checkpoint without passing through any of the others. This makes the game think you drove an entire lap and makes the lap count. If a bagger got out of balance and started driving backwards, then didn't hit the checkpoints correctly, you could accidentally do the ultra shortcut, which would put your position in first until the other races pass you in the opposite direction. So not only are you messing up the other runners' positions, which is the main reason it's banned, but you would also be putting yourself a lap ahead of the other bagger, making it completely useless. But the solution to this is pretty simple. As long as you drive close enough to the track so that you hit the checkpoints correctly, the game will accurately track your position. It would be like driving backwards normally on the road. So baggers started labbing this out and proved it was possible. And in early 2020, the out of bounds glitch was unbanned for baggers, and the backwards shortcut on Coconut Mall was allowed. Now, you might think it's pretty crazy that it took 9 years for baggers to figure out this was possible and get the cut unbanned, which, yeah, no, that is true. I mean, even back in 2011 when the glitch was discovered, we knew how checkpoints and ultra shortcuts worked. So this backwards shortcut should have been implemented a lot sooner, right? Well, even if back then people did make the connection and figure this out, it still wouldn't have been worth it because the glitch was too hard. If you fail the glitch, you have to respawn and drive all the way back to the last item box. This takes well over 30 seconds, so the bagger will always get at least one item box in 10th for free. People just weren't consistent enough at making the glitch, and remember, because it was banned, no one had any incentive to learn about it and get better. Really, the only thing that changed in 2020 is that people did get better. Players want to push the game to its limits in every aspect, and it didn't take long after the glitch's unbanning for baggers to get decently consistent at it. It's still high risk, high reward, but definitely not just a shot in the dark. It's a viable strategy that many baggers have dedicated time to learning and improve their game. This unbanning made people start to think, what other previously unviable strategies could actually have potential? One player in particular was about to find that answer. Justin is one of the most prolific time trialers the game has ever seen. He's also a lab rat with TAS. TAS stands for Tool Assisted Speedrun. Basically, you run the game through an emulator and use slowdown, frame by frame, and save states to get exact inputs and create inhuman gameplay. Justin finds new potential time saves using TAS, then tries to replicate it in real time to test if it's viable. There are few players with his creativity and dedication. But Justin is not a bagger, so all of his great advancements will not be useful to them. But one day in May of 2020, Justin was looking at old TAS videos for inspiration, and he stumbled upon one for Toad's Factory. He saw something that sparked his interest. That night, he would post a video in a Discord server that would permanently change Toad's Factory. Now let me be clear, Justin did not discover this wall clip. He saw it done in this video posted by Cribson, TF has been unlocked. And this video was uploaded 11 years ago, so people knew that theoretically Toad's Factory could be driven backwards. But it's another case of things being too impractical. The wall clip to scale this wall is extremely difficult. Most wall clips are used for ultra shortcuts or other big skips in Mario Kart Wii, and they require ridiculously precise alignments and inputs. Until Justin posted his video and posed the question of whether it could be viable for bagging, no one had even considered it. Even after Justin brought attention to it, players didn't really latch on to this cut like they did with Coconut Mall. It was that hard. Justin showed the potential, but it wasn't until a year and a half later where Sam would start posting clips of him doing it. At this point in time in January 2022, Sam was the best bagger in the game. Him bringing attention to the strat definitely brought its viability into consideration even more, and players would slowly start implementing it. But it wasn't until another year later where things would reach a climax. Bop would post an alignment tutorial for the wall clip, allowing players of all skill levels the chance to learn this strat. It's still insanely tough to pull off, but pretty soon we would start to see an influx of highlights of people doing the backwards clip on TF. The difficulty alone wasn't the entire reason why people were slow to learn this cut. It was also pretty risky. At the start of the race, you go to the items to get mushrooms. You drive back to the wall and attempt the clip. If you make it, great. If you don't, you have to drive back to the other bagger, where they will be hitting item boxes uncontested. The opposing bagger will be in 9th, so the chance that they pull shock is lower, and if they pull the bill or a golden, they will have to spend a lot of time to get rid of those items. Even still, it's always risky to give your opponent free chances at pulling the shock. So this isn't a cut you would want to risk in an important match, but it is still something baggers would learn to do and flex their skills in friendly scrims. Now, even though Toad's Factory didn't take off until later on, 2020 had already showed 2 major advancements in the bagging meta. And things would not slow down, because just 3 months later, Justin was back. Justin was once again on the hunt sifting through old Taz videos, and he found another gem, a rainbow colored gem. Justin was about to break Mario Kart's most infamous track, and the strategy implemented would become by far the most viable. This is Rainbow Road's backwards respawn. Now let me be clear, again, Justin did not discover the backwards respawn, but just like with Toad's Factory, this was the first time a lot of people found out that driving these tracks backwards was actually possible, and more importantly the first time someone had proposed its use for bagging. Now Justin doesn't remember exactly what video he was watching or who first really discovered it, but there are some very old videos demonstrating it. The oldest one I can find is from 13 years ago, with the title of A, just A, by a Japanese player with the channel name 121KN. He does the respawn in the jet setter with horrendous quality. Now, if this seems familiar to you, or you feel like you're unlocking some type of secret deep memory, prepare to have your mind blown. This 121KN guy is the same person who uploaded this video, ! with 28 million views. It's just a video of him time trialing Rainbow Road with the Flame Flyer, but it's one of those videos that gets recommended to people for no apparent reason, and it's famous on YouTube at this point. But yeah, it's the same channel. Not that it really matters, but it is cool that this 121KN guy might be the first person to have recorded evidence of this backwards cut. Now onto the cut itself. It's similar to Toad's Factory. You go forwards to the first set to get mushrooms. You go back, do this ramp skip using a shroom, which is fairly easy, then you drive back to the cannon for the actual skip. Normally, if you try to simply shroom off, you'd quickly get counted as out of bounds and respawn after the cannon. To get enough airtime and respawn before the cannon, you need to apply TF physics. All TF physics is when you drift in one direction off a ledge, if you immediately hold the opposite direction when you leave the ledge, you will get more airtime. This is useful on stuff like Mushroom Gorge Gap Jump. You drift left, hold right when you leave the edge, and boom, easy cut. Same thing for Toad's Factory Shroomless Lake Cut, where it gets its name. You drift right, hold left as you leave the ramp, and you get extra air. So on Rainbow Road, you drift left near the guardrail, then hold right as you're leaving. And if you get enough air, you'll clear the fall boundary and fall much further down, then respawn at the item set before the cannon to endlessly chain boxes in 10th. Earlier I said that this was the most viable strategy, and there's 2 reasons why. For one, it's not that hard. By no means is it free, but compared to the Toad's Factory and even Coconut Mall strats, this is leagues easier. The second reason is that, unlike Toad's Factory, there's a lot less risk involved. You're in 10th while attempting the strat, So even if you fail it and the other bagger just wants to hit boxes, it will only be a 9th. Also, with Rainbow Road's layout, hitting the last item set requires you to jump off a ramp. So if you want to get another box, you need to turn around and respawn behind the set again, which is quite slow. That means normally both baggers just sit behind the set doing nothing the entire race until one team desperately needs the shot. If you go for a box, it will be a 9th, and the other bagger can freely go for a box in 10th behind you. When you turn around to respawn, you can't hit another box in time before the other bagger also respawns behind you. So you're stuck hitting 9th placers while the other bagger will always get 10thers. This new cut takes one of the most boring bagging tracks and actually makes it interesting. Immediately after people got word of Justin's video, this bagging strat started getting used at all levels. What a year for Mario Kart Wii in 2020. 3 new advancements for the bagging meta, player activity was at an all-time high, and we had an amazing World Cup tournament over that summer. But as 2020 ended, the months would pass by, and people would slowly return back to their normal life before, the thing that was happening. I don't know if you can still not say that on YouTube, but with activity decreasing, any new bagging discoveries would come to a halt. Aside from Sam and then Bob's videos about the Toad's Factory clip, the next 3 years wouldn't see any new major bagging strats. Which is okay. It was already insane that these 3 major meta advancements were made 12 years after the game's released, all in such a short time frame. So now there were only 3 true sitting tracks for the baggers. DK Mountain had a fence blockade, kinda like DK Summit, but with no zippers or any type of wall to clip off of, this one seemed unbreakable. Maple Treeway's giant gap seemed like it was too far to even manipulate any type of respawn, and again there was nothing to work with this one as far as clips or any way to get a ton of air. There is an out of bounds glitch which maybe could be used for something, but as far as we know right now, we're never getting behind this cannon. Finally, Koopa Cape. Out of the 3 tracks left, this one had the most potential. Just like Toad's Factory and Coconut Mall, there was just a wall that we had to get over, not a cannon or a gap to clear. But the wall was simply too high to clear even with any type of wall clip, and the enclosed nature of the tube prevented any type of respawn shenanigans. This track would be tough to crack as well. But one day, in May of 2023, Sam would start to cook up something. Following in Justin's footsteps, Sam was going through old task videos to see if there is any possibilities of forgotten strats that could be used to break these last 3 tracks. And once again, a strategy once thought to be too hard for players will become incorporated into the game's meta. This is Koopa Cape's backwards respawn. Instead of scaling the waterfall, the technique is much more like DK Summit or Rainbow Road, where we respawn behind our obstacle. Wall clipping off of this rock can actually give you enough distance to respawn all the way back before the water stream. Even though this is a huge sequence break, the game tracks your position accurately, so you will be in 10th. The video that Sam was watching is Koopa Cape Backwards in 1 Respawn by Curio. Curio is one of the most well-known and active Tazers in the community, and his video was uploaded on March 28th, 2022, so much more recently. The way that Curio does the backwards clip involves a Taz-only technique called rapid-fire hopping. Sticking into the ground and then ejecting out while using rapid-fire hopping gives you a ton of distance, as well as the wall clip afterwards. But as it turned out, Sam discovered that there was no need for any Taz-only inputs. If you clip off the wall at the right alignment, you can get enough distance. This is another strat where the risk is minimal. You can hit an item box for the potential mushrooms very quickly at the zipper item set. If you make the clip, you will respawn before 30 seconds, and if you fail it, you will most likely be able to get back to the last item set around 30 seconds. You maybe risk the other bagger getting 1 box in 10th, but overall this was another viable strat for baggers to learn just like the previous ones. However, unlike the previous discoveries, Sam would not make a video demonstrating the respawn for the public. He was keeping this a secret. Sam was strat holding for the next 7 months, telling only some close friends, making sure they didn't leak it. But rumors would indeed spread, and eventually on December 7th, 2023, Sam would release a montage video where he showcased the new Koopa Cape respawn. You might wonder why he was keeping it a secret for so long. Well, it was because he wanted to debut it on the big stage. That same month in December, the team that Sam bagged for, JX, would play MC in the D1 finals for the competitive Mario Kart Wii League Grand Star Cup. Grand Star Cup, or GSC, is a couple month long seasonal league, and JX and MC were undisputably the two best teams. They would play in the finals, which was a best of 3 on December 27th. MC would take match 1, but JX would retaliate and take match 2. The final match was going back and forth, but after 11 races, with only 1 race left, JX would lead by 1 point. It was dead even. The teams were deciding what tracks to pick, and JX selected Koopa Cape. The roulette would spin, and the rest would be up to fate. Sam makes the backwards strat. He hits a box in 10th right at 30 seconds, but the opposing bagger Mac simply pulls it in 9th, and MC would go on to win this race, and the war, and the BO3, and the D1 title. This was a painful reminder of how cruel Mario Kart Wii can be. It's a game of probabilities. It's a game where you only have a few opportunities to clutch up and make a difficult play. If the items don't roll in your favor, or if you fail even once, it can cost you dearly. It's so random and chaotic and infuriating, but there are times when you do make the right decision, and you simply play better than your opponents, and it feels so good. And that's why we keep playing. Bagging can be really stupid, but these new strategies brought some life and some excitement back into it. It's cool that we're finding new ways to drive tracks backwards, and that there's actually an application for it. This will most likely be the last of any new major bagging strats, but who knows? With a community this talented and dedicated, you can never be sure. Thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. I know my channel is mostly shorts, but I'm going to keep posting longer videos about Mario Kart Wii like this. There's been a lot of great long-form Mario Kart Wii videos recently, so if you found this video interesting, again, I'd greatly appreciate a quick sub. Thanks again, see you next time.
Yeah, I pulled up on that bitch and she said, didn't eat.